on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. Thursday live stream. We are going to talk about a few different things. In this week in satire, we are going to address Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and how Amber Heard, upon losing her trial and her defamation suit, she was immediately hired by Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire.
She was heard.
She was heard. She will never be cancelable.
Never.
Never. She joins Gina Carano. In our rants of the week, we're going to talk about how the establishment and the left is always trying to paint a renewed image of cowboys and Indians, but instead of cowboys and Indians, it's the right and the left.
No, the good and the bad.
The
good guys and the bad guys.
This is my intro segment, and I will take it.
Go for it. We'll do it right then.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about some vaccine injuries and vaccine side effects, and then we're going to finish off with a new word order in honor of Degeneracy Month, about phobias and how the term is being misused left, right, and center. All of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. Okay.
Hey, we're back.
Thursday, and we're back, and we're live. And Danny is back this time because he's back to being somewhat reliable. Thank you very much.
I'm always reliable. Hey, when I go to BC, I control the schedule.
When you go to BC, you're surrounded by delinquents.
Surrounded by idiots.
Speaking of surrounded by delinquents, actually, oh my gosh, driving home from work, one of the weirdest things I've ever seen on the road. So I'm in this lane going straight.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, next to me is the turning lane. There's two turning lanes because it's turning onto Center Street. And in the turning lane, these cars just the light is red and they just start going. And there's this car on Center Street that's trying to turn onto our road. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And they drive around him and keep going. And I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Oh, that's crazy.
This is weird. Craziest part was ghost car right next to me didn't do squat. And I'm like, are you
you're a secret for a reason, bro.
And I'm like, this is actually a hazard to driving in Calgary if people are just going through red lights and just subverting traffic laws whenever they feel like it. And you're like, whatever. I'm like, what do we pay you for? But has anything else interesting happened in the past couple days?
Well, not for me. I've been back to work, and I forgot how hard it is to get up so early. I had a week where I just slept until 9 each day, which is decent and all that. Now I'm waking up at 5:30 each day, and I'm like, my body hates me right now. It's the worst.
It happens.
It happens. Yes, but tomorrow we're hoping to see actually do a thing I haven't done in years now because of the stinking COVID. Is I'm thinking of actually going to the theater, an actual movie theater,
and watch Top Gun.
Top Gun,
yeah, you're gonna watch
Top Gun, baby.
That's right. Figured. I'm like, he's gonna watch Top Gun.
Oh,
I've heard that it's good. I haven't seen it yet.
Everyone's saying it's good.
So I guess I
will
come
with us, man.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, if you're free. Make it happen.
Well, we'll see, because we have our typical gatherings with Anna and Russell for Bible study,
right?
So,
but they said that they're leaving tomorrow, for their honeymoon, their belated honeymoon.
Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to Steph because I have not heard anything about this.
Oh, okay.
So, as far as I knew, we were gonna have Bible study tomorrow.
Oh.
So yeah, maybe. I guess we'll
maybe ask him, because I told him that we're thinking of doing it tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Unless he misunderstood, because he said he's like, oh, we can't. We're going to our we're going for like our honeymoon this weekend. And I'm like, well, it's Friday evening that we're going to watch it, so like, you should come.
Yeah.
Anyways, check with them because
I will.
be good to have more
I will
people that
check
watch
with-
the movie.
For sure.
Yeah. Well,
Don't know how interested Steph will be in pilots and
well,
very
maybe
manly movies.
Steph and Anna can have like a girls' night and just chill and hang out. And do
Well,
things.
if they're going on their honeymoon, then Steph would be by herself.
No. I'm saying if they're here, we can maybe.
Oh,
go
if they're here,
watch the movie.
yes. If they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But this is personal
guys.
chat. This is podcast
right.
time. Let's go
that's
back.
Right. We're podcasting.
Yes, we are live right now. And
Oh,
we're
that's
just
right.
talking
We're not
in public
recording
like a bunch of dinkleberries.
That's
We're very sorry, everybody.
a great word right there, Dinkleberry.
I love that word. It's such a great term.
I've only
Dinkleberry.
known Dingleberry, not Dinkleberry.
I use them interchangeably.
Okay, that works.
I thoroughly
But,
enjoy my dinkleberry.
I hope that doesn't mean what I think it means.
No,
Okay.
I just
Anyways, tell us
enjoy the
what's-
term.
All right, buddy. So tell us what's going on this week. What are we?
Okay, well,
what
let's.
are we
We've
concentrating
been
on?
kind of chatting and wasting enough time, so let's just jump in.
Catching up, man.
I know. Well, it's only been 2 days, so there's not that much to catch up on unless we're just really bad and not involved in each other's lives at all. So we're going to jump into this week in satire, if that's okay with everybody, and we're just going to not talk about it anymore. Okay. Uncancelled. Amber Heard hired by the Daily Wire.
Oh, thank God. I
A
was
few
so worried
minutes
about
after the verdict was read in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, conservative media company The Daily Wire announced they've uncancelled the now infamous celebrity and signed a contract with her for several new movies and shows. Cancel culture is out of hand. The Daily Wire is striking back. Oh no. Said CEO and grooming product salesman Jeremy Boring. The mainstream media thought that they could destroy that career of this brilliant and charming woman, but Hollywood's loss is our gain. Take that, woke Hollywood. According to sources, Heard will star her own podcast, as well as 3 new Daily Wire-produced sequels to the Hyperions. I'm so grateful to be a part of the Daily Wire team, said Heard, pausing unnaturally several times and making odd facial expressions as she spoke before snorting a line of cocaine.
And she still can't cry, apparently.
I'll really try not to crap the bed on this opportunity. At Publishing Time, Heard already alleged abuse and harassment by Ben Shapiro. Because, of course she did.
It's Amber Heard. That's her MO. That's you got to do your.
It is.
Everyone's got to do your thing.
But of course, this is based on the fact that she lost an award. The jury sided with Depp, awarding him $15 million. Of course, this is like, I don't really care that much about Depp and Amber Heard. This is a win against the Me Too movement, and that's what matters.
Mm-hmm. It's and like the important thing about this this trial is that trial basically. I mean, it's a big celebrity. I mean, people may not know. Like, some people may be into, like, following like TMZ and Hollywood, like, gossip and all that, and celeb gossip. That's a whole, that's a whole world that people might be involved in. People are really into it. But for the regular public, they just know Johnny Depp, and they know about Johnny Depp because of his movies. But the reason I thought this was important is because it was one of the most highly publicized he said, she said trials, and because it comes on the heels of the Me Too movement, it became this like testing ground for like, okay, does the Me Too movement still have flaws? And I mean, let's face it, Johnny Depp was definitely coming in the underdog because he had an uphill battle to win back public respect. But unfortunately, Amber Heard was so fully convinced in her mind that she was like the victim and she was perfect and she was right. She never contemplated that this would go the wrong way. And it did in a big way. And the sad thing is that she was exposed in a really public way for being a complete fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And so it destroyed the Me Too thing that started in 2018 by saying, no, the women are just as capable of lying and of and of being malicious and of being dishonest and all that kind of stuff and of abuse. So a lot of people are really happy about this because I mean, it's a vindication for the idea of like equal justice, the idea that, like, no, women can be just as mean and cruel and
Mm-hmm.
vindictive as men can be, and the assumption that men are the only ones that can be the bad guys is totally false.
Yes,
And
it
I think
is.
that's good.
Yep, it is good. And
Mhm.
I'm definitely glad for it. And Amber Heard will, like, I don't want to celebrate the destruction of her career, but also that was her intent. Her intent was to destroy Johnny Depp's career. And while they were both awful to each other,
Mhm.
and neither of them are really that much better than the other, that neither of them really does. Johnny Depp did not deserve to have his career ruined because of false allegations.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's like, okay, Amber Heard will never be hired again.
Mhm.
And so it's like, well, you're not going to get this money, bud. Because she's going to go bankrupt.
No, but I don't think that was the point.
The point was...
Johnny Depp did not need the money.
No.
It was his reputation that was damaged,
Mhm.
and that's what he was ultimately trying to recover. And I'm glad that he did, because I mean, like, let's face it, this Johnny Depp is a very high profile, celebrity, famous for movies, and with this whole thing of this label of calling him an abuser, that like hanging over his head, that he was never going to be able to get work ever. And so getting the vindication in this case is actually a humongous win for him. And let's face it, for a lot of his fans. Now, one of the sad things I think that might happen as a result of this is that a lot of people might actually go turn around and just dump all over Amber Heard. And I'm like, I don't think that she's a good person. I think that she did a lot of really awful things. I think that this is what justice should look like. Somebody does something wrong, a just court looks into it, and they say, like, yeah, this is wrong, and you're responsible, and you're to blame, and so you definitely deserve a consequence. And I think that this is a good thing, because it sends a message that
Yep.
women are not always the victims.
Mm-hmm.
Men can actually be the victims of
Yep.
spousal abuse. And so I think this is good all around. This is a great result.
Yeah, it is. It's quite good.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, so there's not much left to discuss about that. Things went well.
An initial story. It's an initial story.
An initial story.
It's a palate cleanser. It just gets you ready for the real crap coming.
Okay. Sure.
Because you know what? When we're talking about culture and politics, there's always crap. It's just saturated.
There is, unfortunately, pretty much always crap. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that crap, we're going to transition into the rant of the week.
Hey.
Red alert.
Okay, so yes, we have a Cowboys and Indian picture here. So Danny, how about you do the intro, because you were the one who kind of had the brainchild for this operation?
Sure. Okay, so like the theme of this week's rant, Cowboys and Indians. So let me walk you through this. So in the this past week, I got the inspiration from Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles is a very prominent conservative talk show host, and he does a podcast. And he started his whole topic of the military and how the military has gone woke by quoting from General Patton, who is considered to be one of the best generals in American history, but he's also a bit of a foul-mouthed, guy. And
yep.
Basically, he was like, he had to censor a lot of stuff that he said, because what he said was pretty brutal. Yeah. But it contrasted how Patton had the proper view. Patton was an actual realist. He's like, war is hell. War sucks. War is the horrible thing. But you basically have to put aside your fear and your cowardice and go at it. And the modern military is trying to pander and cater to the most fragile and the most weak, the weakest people, and so they're kind of killing themselves. So in that respect, and in that idea or approach, I actually thought about like the the idea of the transgender movement. And one of the things that came to mind was in the 1950s and 60s. For anybody who watches like like old cartoons and all that, and they used to always watch Cowboys and Indians.
Yep.
Cowboys and Indians was like it was like the Lone Ranger and like all these TV shows and movies. John Wayne was like the movie star for the longest time. Cowboy, like the Western was like a huge topic and a huge like showcase in both children's programming as well as in movies and popular culture. And it was like reflected always on in like really like really stereotypical ways. Now what they did is they always had the Cowboys were always the good guys, always. Like they were like the heroes. They were like the ones that they could never do any wrong. They were portrayed as like great, as larger than life. The Indians were always the bad guys, and they were always super simplistic. They were always like they would like like do these like just these chants, and they'd like talking like very just stereotypical ways, like how me big shit. Like they talk like that. So when people in the 50s and the 60s were treated to like westerns and all these things, they were given this extremely one dimensional picture of good guys and bad. Good guys were the Cowboys, bad guys were the Indians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was always how people saw it. It was just super simple.
Yep.
Like, oh no, the Indians are attacking. Well, they're definitely like the bad guys, so we're cheering for the Cowboys. Now, obviously, that all went away when Sputnik, the Russian satellite, went to space. Then everything changed to space, and like the whole thing changed. And we thought, okay, there goes an era of history where okay, that was just the simplistic good guy and bad guy thing. That was just a phase. Well, not so much, because it's back, and it's back with a vengeance. Because I think
I would hazard actually that it changed quite a bit before then.
Like the good guys and bad guys?
Well, no, like having the dichotomy solely be Cowboys and Indians until, like, I would say that dichotomy in terms of having the good guys be the Americans and the bad guys be, like, at first, of course, the Germans in World War I and World War II, and then definitely switching over to the Russians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the good
like
guys.
There's always been in kind of American westernized culture, there's always been, we are the good guys because we are American and we have values and we have beliefs and ideas. And then we're always, of course, going to create a bit of an antagonist. And sometimes those antagonists were not in the wrong at all. They were just kind of placed there by society. Like when they antagonized, saying that like blacks and Jews were responsible for a lot of ills in society. And of course, I'm totally agreeing with you that their interpretation of, oh, this group can do no wrong and this group can do no right is completely how, like, historically Americans and Western society has viewed it.
Yeah, because I'm focusing on like
the
Westerns.
timeline is a little off.
Well, no, the Westerns fell out of favor when like everyone started focusing on the space race in the 1960s.
Yeah.
But the like this picture is from the Lone Ranger.
Yes,
this show was a huge hit success, but it portrays everything in very simple, like black and white categories, like good guy, bad guy, and the Cowboys were always the good guy. The Lone Ranger was always the good guy, and look at the way that they portray his sidekick was always like kind of like this, the
simple-minded, yep,
simple-minded, simpleton, all
needed
that kind of
the
stuff.
assistance, but was helpful in his own way.
Right. So now let's flash forward to what's happening today. Now, today, what is going on is we're having a complete return to that kind of mindset. And why do I say that? Is because what is going on is the new the new cultural trend is that the transgender community, they're like the ultimate victims. They're constantly being attacked and abused and constantly being hit hard, right?
Yeah.
Actually, can you go to the Daily Wire story before you go to this one? I want to frame this properly, okay? So the way that it works It's really simple. And I'm gonna propose to you an idea. Now, the way it always works is that the transgender community is always seen as victims. Okay, they're always victims, and so they always have this victim, like like a almost like this sense of moral high ground. We're victims. Where does that come from? That comes from Marxism and the whole neo-Marxist kind of philosophy that you have the oppressors and you have the oppressed. Okay, the oppressors are bad. The oppressed are always good because they're like the victims, right? This is bled into every single cultural battle of the left from feminism, like the women are always the victims of the patriarchy, and the men who are the patriarchy. Then you have the racism, which like the black people are the victims of the system, and like, white people, and white people are the oppressors, right? This is very simple categories. Now with transgenderism, we're seeing that this is getting to such a high level where it doesn't matter what a transgender person does. They are always excused from any like anything that they say is completely and totally excused because they cannot be the bad guys.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter what they do, they cannot be the bad guys. They're always the good guys. We're back to these very simplistic, one-dimensional caricatures where nothing that they do is bad or wrong. So, like, let's go into the story from the U10 from the Daily Wire.
Okay.
UPenn swimmer details truth surrounding Leah Thomas and new Matt Walsh doc. What is a woman? So go ahead, Steve.
Okay, so they made it pretty clear if you speak up about it, your life will be over in some way. A female in the University of Pennsylvania swimming team told best-selling author and podcast host Matt Walsh what it was really like having a female identifying Leah Thomas, who is biologically male, permitted to join the team and dominate in the Ivy League. The UPenn swimmer who asked to have her identity shielded out of fear of retribution. This is like that's really sad, and that even exposing what it was like to have this biological male who was effectively cheating on her team, she had to hide and keep her identity shielded because the fear of retribution and the backlash from either other teammates or her coach or William Thomas himself, or from the ruling body of the sport, all these things. It's absolutely disgusting.
Now, quick question for you on that.
Yeah.
Do you think this girl, and I'm being honest here, do you think that this girl, this swimmer who they're talking about, do you think that she's a victim?
Do I think that she's a victim?
Yeah, look at like how she's being treated by her school and like the threats and retribution that are being leveled against her. Do you think that she would qualify as legitimately as a victim?
I think that she, like being on the same team, she benefited because their team got propelled likely further than they would have naturally. But especially, like, it depends how they were treated on a lot of different things. I'm kind of sputtering here.
Yeah, you are. So let me give you why I think why I'm making that question. Okay, look at what's happening to this girl. Okay, if you look at her, like the video of her interview, she's basically she had to hide her identity.
Yes.
Why would she do that? It's because the fear of like serious, harmful, and like completely over the top attacks and retribution against her are so powerful and so strong that she literally is scared to even be able to speak on it.
Yeah.
These are not people who are, these are not remember what the left wants you to believe, this is the bad guy. She's the bad guy because she doesn't support the good guys. The good guys are always the good guys, and anybody who opposes them in any way is automatically the bad guy. No matter how much abuse, no matter how many attacks they suffer, no matter how much they live in fear, no matter nothing. They're always the bad guys.
Yeah.
So you see how caricature is so prevalent that like this person, it's impossible for them to be the good guy. even though they're trying to be courageous, even though they're trying to speak out on behalf of women. And look at the Leah Thomas, okay, this biological man, and I don't know if you saw Stephen that he had an interview where he was interviewed and he's like, "Oh, I don't care about right or wrong or whether or not I have an advantage. I'm happy. That's all that matters."
Yeah.
And they had so little fear of any pushback or any retribution or anything that they felt completely free to say really horrendous things.
Yep.
He even said that oh, I took estrogen, so I'm like my teammates now. I'm weak and pathetic.
Yeah,
basically.
I've slowed up and have become weaker, and my stamina has decreased. It's like, well,
Yeah.
At least you're admitting that that men are different than women, which is what a lot of trans activists won't admit. But you still have an advantage. Like there was, of course, an article from the New York Times this past week where it was like, oh yeah, like he definitely had an advantage. They were, of course, using the preferred pronouns of William.
Of course.
Now going by Leah because he's loony.
Yep.
But they're like 1 year of estrogen treatments and 1 year of hormone therapy is not enough to negate an entire childhood and adolescence of growing up as a boy.
And there was even 2 doctors that came out this past week that actually confirmed that. They both confirmed, yes, there's absolutely no way that these pure blockers or whatever that Leah Thomas is taking, and there's no way that made it an even playing field. It's just nothing more than theater. It's oh, we're doing something, but we don't want to talk about whether or not that something actually accomplished what we want. It's we're just doing something. Now, here's the thing. So this girl, what she faces as retribution is it's pretty powerful because it could ruin her life. She would never be hired again. She would be treated like a complete and total social outcast. Why? Because if you oppose the good guys, you're a bad guy by definition. Doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how kind you are or even your intentions. No, you're instantly labeled bad guy. This is how simplistic the left makes it, which is why it's crazy. This is I don't see this girl as a vindictive, horrible person who people. I see her as a person who's scared, who believes that speaking up is important. But the left doesn't do that. They think bad person. Okay. And so automatically go to the next story to show how really horrible this can go.
Well, how about we play the video?
Yeah, Leah obviously helps us do better, right? Leah's swimming really fast. Leah's performance helps the University of Pennsylvania swim team. The feeling of winning doesn't feel as good anymore because it feels tainted. There was a lot of things you couldn't talk about that were very concerning, like a locker room situation. If you even brought up concerns about it, you were transphobic. If you even bring up the fact that Leah swimming might not be fair, you were immediately shut down as being called a hateful person or transphobic.
But there's never any conversation. The coaches don't sit everyone down and acknowledge what everyone's really upset about.
So Penn actually brought in people high up in the athletic department to talk to us. They brought in someone from the LGBTQ center. They brought in someone from the psychological services.
So you're upset about what's happening, and so you need psychological help.
Yeah, and they told us in this meeting, they said, look, we understand there's an array of emotions, but Leah's swimming is a non-negotiable. However, we can help you make that okay. That's what we're here for.
Can you believe that?
Unfortunately, I can. Especially because this sort of stuff is becoming more prominent. So, of course, quote, "This is a nightmare. Female inmate speaks out against trans-identifying male transfers." An inmate at New Jersey's Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women is speaking out against the transfer. I remember hearing about this early on, about how this was happening. Speaking with Redux, incarcerated woman Miseka Diggs explained that the female inmates are scared to death of the men. Under the current policy, the men do not need to undergo any surgery, and Diggs asserts that most of the men are not on hormone replacement therapy. She stated that the majority of women incarcerated have past trauma, with many being victims of male violence, and the presence of men in the facility is causing them severe distress. I wonder why. According to a 2016 report from the Vera Institute of Justice, 86% of incarcerated women have a history of abuse and 77% have a history of experiencing intimate partner violence. Women's rights advocates have described the situation as a sexual abuse to prison pipeline. Well, duh.
Yeah. Go to the go down to like not this paragraph, but the one below it. According to Diggs. Yeah, say according to Diggs.
Oh, according to Diggs, women who complain of feeling unsafe are placed in protective custody. We can't express our feelings in fear of being put in protective custody, which is like lockup. If you use the wrong words, you'll be uprooted and removed from your living quarters. So many women walk around in fear. We feel like we're part of some sick joke. This is a nightmare that we can't wake up from. The women here are traumatized over and over again, and it seems as if no one cares about our needs. We feel like second-class citizens with no rights.
Yeah. So all I can think of is like when I was listening to this on the show. All I could think of was like, I just watched like Stranger Things, and like, I mean, it's in the trailer, so like, it's not like a spoiler, but basically the inmates at the Russian prison are basically thrown into a cage with the Demogorgon, and the thing just literally rips them to shreds. This is what this feels like. It feels like what they're doing to these women is they're putting them in the cage with an animal, like basically somebody who is way too powerful for them to stop and who has legitimately power to hurt them in very horrible ways. And the people in charge punish them, the women, for saying anything against it. This would qualify as cruel and unusual punishment. This is the kind of stuff that used to happen in prisons where they would torture or they would torment or mistreat prisoners because like, oh, they're prisoners, they don't deserve any good. Like, and no, this is wrong. But here is in an incredible nutshell how this ideology of the simplistic, like the simplistic enforced binary of good guy and bad guy. Okay, these guys that are in this prison, these are not good people. These are not good men. They're criminals. And they chose to prison, and for like, and I hate to say it, like, unless you prove it to me otherwise, I'm not going to believe you that they go into this prison with good intentions. They go into this prison because they have every intention, if they can get away with it,
manipulating and abusing women.
Exactly. You've created an environment that is incredibly toxic and dangerous for women, and the worst part is you don't care because it's like good guys and bad guys. These men, these transgender men, are protected by people in power and people who have influence, including the prison, people in charge of the prison. They're protected by them. These women, who are actual victims and actually the ones in danger, are treated like bad guys. Nothing they say. It doesn't matter how much they share the stories. Oh, you need to get on board. You need to, and they will force it. This is why I believe this is what it is with the transgender movement. It is a super simplistic, black and white, good guys and bad guys. There's no nuance. There's no chance of any gray, nothing. It's you're transgender, you're automatically a good guy. Everything you do is absolutely good. You can beat somebody, you can rape somebody, you can hurt somebody, you can call somebody every name in the book. You're still a good guy.
Well, it was kind of funny. Like, I didn't realize that Ricky Gervais was now a prophet.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they had somebody, I think this was reported by the BBC, and they had a transgender individual who is a biological man and raped somebody, and the BBC made sure to use their preferred pronouns. And they actually had to modify the story because they had initially posted it as this person was a man, but then the inmate, or not the inmate, but the rapist, demanded that BBC stop dead naming them, and they changed it for them.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, I thought it would take like a couple weeks for this to come true. Maybe like, a few months, maybe a year. But it's like, yeah, it's not even a week.
They're like they are the most powerful victim group
Oh, yeah,
in America,
easily.
and in the world, easy.
Hey, Bisky.
Who's Bestie?
Bisky.
Biscuit.
Bisky is one of our fans who shows up once in a while on Twitch.
Oh,
And I am
sweet.
sorry, Bisky, that I keep forgetting to acknowledge that you show up. Because I don't check the chat as often as I should, but I'm saying hi now. So sorry, Danny, for interrupting. Please continue.
No, it's all good. All good. Yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to finish off on, is the idea that that's my thesis. What do you think? Do you think that we're right or wrong?
Oh no, I think you're
yeah.
on board.
Yeah, I think it's a very simple thesis, is that the left has made categories of good guy and bad guy like incredible. It's almost so simplistic that it's insulting. The idea that there's no nuance, that there's no bad guys. Remember that boy who raped that girl in that
the Virginia bathroom? Yeah.
The Virginia bathroom? He was always treated as the good guy. Oh, he's the victim. He's the one that's really suffering, right? He's the victim. And the girl and her parents who spoke up, bad guys, right?
Yeah, just terrible.
You look at look at Jussie Smollett. I mean, he's not transgender, but he's gay. So he's part of that group. He basically was convicted of committing a complete hoax, making it up, and never ever even had any remorse about it. Even in his when he was judged, he was he was crying victim. And guess what he's doing now, Stephen?
I have no idea.
He's got a new show. He's got a brand new show. He's directing and acting in a brand new show. He got rewarded by Hollywood.
Yeah.
And he's guilty of one of the biggest hate hoaxes in possibly in American history. And yet he's a good guy. Yeah. He can never be the bad guy.
Yikes.
Because he's part of that special group. He's the cowboy. So you apply this anywhere you want. This is how it works. They're always the good guy.
Yeah. And because they control the establishment, they can manipulate the story to make anybody and anything into whatever group they want.
Yeah.
And some of that will be discussed when we do the news you may have missed, which we're going to move on to now.
Amen, brother. Well, that's a good rant, though.
It was a decent rant, yes. All right, so starting off, and I'll do the first one, and then you can go from there. The Daily Wire comes under sustained DDoS attack intended to disrupt premiere of What is a Woman? I love how they have this giant billboard. I believe this is in Times Square. It's fantastic. So they came under a sustained DDoS attack during the world premiere of What is a Woman? I would love to see this film. Unfortunately, I think, Danny, you're kind of in the same boat as me, where we would like to sign up for the Daily Wire, but it's an annual membership.
No, it's not like a monthly?
Nope. It tells you how much it costs per month, but then it's and it's billed annually.
Yeah.
So you can't unsubscribe, and you're like...
that's expensive.
Well, yeah, because I think the total cost in American is $135.
Yeah.
So
it's not too far off from what the Mug Club for Louder Crowder.
Yeah.
Same thing. So it's billed annually.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind signing up for things. If I have all the extra money and all that, I'd be like, yeah, sure. I like to support them and all that.
Oh yeah.
I don't doubt that eventually the movie will be available on some other platforms and all that. And I'd be happy to see it. But it's supposed to be an amazing show.
Oh yeah. I've heard from quite a few people that it is really spectacular. Tim Pool and Laura Clausen and several other high-profile people that we know. I actually had a conversation with Laura Clausen this morning about it. Because she's yeah, it was a free premiere yesterday. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. She's like, I realized it was not a free premiere. My husband has the Daily Wire. I'm like, yeah, he does.
Yeah, Lips of TikTok loved it too. They thought it was great.
So, quote, we have confirmed that the Real Daily Wire experienced a significant and sustained DDoS attack tonight, meant to disrupt the world premiere of What is a Woman? 1 million requests per minute at the peak flooded our system and created challenges for many viewers. We're working to address these challenges in real time. Even so, the premiere had more viewers than any stream in the history of the site. A huge success for an amazing film. Doesn't want you to see this movie. See it anyway. VOD up now. Which is video on demand. So, yes, I would love to see this film. I'm sure it is quite spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And it's troubling, of course, and we've mentioned this before on the show, it's troubling that such a basic question is so difficult for so many people to answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, it shows, like they always say, that the actual core of trans ideology is completely hollow. So in some ways, it's bad news because it makes you feel bad, like, oh my gosh, how do people believe this stuff? But at the same time, the good news is that it shows how empty and void of any reason or logic any of this is.
Yeah.
And so it can fall apart if we push hard enough, which I really like, actually.
Anyways,
Right.
moving on. You can do
all right,
this one.
so this story is from Fox News. Ex-Virginia Tech football player acquitted of murder and beating of gay man who posed as a woman during sex act. That's a very interesting headline.
It is.
I have to say, oh my gosh. Ironman Toots, defense attorney, argued former college athlete was victim of wicked sexual ruse.
Yep.
Already I'm intrigued. Okay, so former Virginia Tech
I'm intrigued.
I am actually.
It's
I'm
weird.
Like, okay, it's a weird story. It's like this is the kind of stuff that you'd only hear about in the modern day. Like seriously, like in the past, it would have been like weird. Now it's like, oh yeah, every day. A former Virginia Tech football player was acquitted of murder charges Friday in the deadly beating of a man accused of pretending to be a woman during a sexual encounter after the two matched on Tinder. Okay, I've heard this before. A jury in Montgomery County Circuit Court found 19-year-old Simonen. Okay.
Yeah.
Etut not guilty of a charge of second-degree murder in the 2021 death of Jerry Smith, 40, of Blacksburg. I wonder if he's actually black too. Like
He is.
Okay, that's really funny.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if Jerry is. I know the football players.
Yeah, it sounds like it. The jury deliberated for approximately 3 hours before returning its verdict around 6:30 p.m. The Roanoke Times reported. Prosecutors had earlier told the jury that Etut, then 18, became enraged and fatally beat Smith when he discovered that Smith had a hot dog. Smith was a man. Smith, who identified as a gay man, presented himself in a profile in the online dating app Tinder as a 21-year-old emergency room physician named Angie Renee. So this guy lied about multiple things. He lied about his age, lied about like his gender, and he lied about like being a gay man. Like he basically was like a cougar, like hunting for like young kids. Like that's really creepy. Smith performed oral sex on the Toot, who later returned to the apartment to find out if his date was a man or a woman. In taking the stand earlier in the week, the Toot had testified that he felt violated when he discovered that the Tinder match he believed to be a woman was actually a man. So, and there's a picture of the nice man who got it and all that. So, good for, I'm glad he didn't get his life completely torn apart and all that. Now, this is a very interesting thing because here's my take on it. Okay, the transgender community has a very difficult dilemma, and this has come up in a lot of this has come up because the transgender community tries to put these videos out saying, oh, it's transphobic if you won't date a transgender person. Because what happens is transgender people are if you're a man, you have to present as a woman, but then you have a dilemma. You know that it's incredibly rare for men, if you're attracted to men, for men to want to date a transgender woman, because deep down they know what they really are, right? And so do they lie, or do they pretend to be the woman or something like that? And so they're caught in this. This is one of the sad outcomes of being transgender that nobody ever talks about, which is that they basically either have to accept that the pool of available partners is almost non-existent, or that they have to lie to people and start every relationship on a lie, and then like hope that they can pop it on them and be like oh, you love me. So you and I covered a story. Remember this? Way back when there was like there was a question, an article that we talked about where the question was like, is it wrong for if that a person lied about being transgender? And it was like this sob story about this person now, like oh, but I told him that I love him, but now he's really pissed because I lied, but I had to lie. It's like
otherwise they wouldn't accept me.
Yeah, exactly.
But
now, yeah,
there's a lot more that could be said. Like, the football player is not 100% in the right because, like, dude, A, you're on Tinder. That's stupid. B, how do you not notice that the 40-year-old guy is not
21?
Yeah, it's like this is not a 21-year-old emergency room physician. Like, come on.
No.
Like, I admit that yes, the being in the if they met in the dark room, and the Smith insisted that they were in a dark room, that's one thing.
Yeah,
but the whole thing is just weird.
This is where like the sexual deviancy of today just runs amok.
It does.
It's really sad.
It does. But unfortunately, it's not just sexual deviancy. It's also this. Democrat Charles Booker wears a noose in a new ad blasting GOP Senator Rand Paul.
Oh, please play it. Please play it. Please play it.
Is this it? Nope, this is not. Go away. Here it is.
Okay, I love how they have to like say that it has strong imagery. It was a political ad.
In Kentucky, like many states throughout the South, lynching
nice little
was
noose.
a tool of terror. It was
Sure
used
was.
to kill hopes for freedom.
It
was
sure
used
did.
to kill my ancestors.
Oh my
In a
gosh!
historic victory for our Commonwealth,
Wow!
first Black Kentuckian to receive the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate.
And the last.
The very
Last
person who
nomination for you.
healthcare to slavery.
Huh.
The person who said he would have opposed the Civil Rights Act. The person who single-handedly blocked an anti-lynching act from being federal law. The choice couldn't be clearer. Do we move forward together? Or do we
He's
let
holding the
politicians
noose
like
even
Rand
closer.
Paul forever hold us back and drive us apart? In November, we will choose healing. We will choose Kentucky.
Wow!
Yep. That guy.
Wow! That guy! My
That
God!
guy.
Can you believe that? Like the fact that these people get away with this crap.
Yeah.
That is so great.
absolutely horrifyingly manipulative and evil.
That is cringy as hell. That is
Like,
so cringy.
Yes, lynching
Gosh.
was a tool of terror in the past. Comparing Rand Paul, who, he voted against this lynching legislation because the lynching legislation would have made lynching a lesser crime than murder.
Yep.
Which means you would have actually gotten less jail time if you had murdered someone in a lynching, which hasn't happened since the 50s. It was a bill, and it was just a complete waste of the House and the Senate's time. But this guy used the imagery of a noose, used the fact that Rand Paul voted because Rand Paul doesn't like useless government spending. And he tried to use it for racial purposes because he is a schmuck. Like, this guy should have been called out the minute that this was posted. He should have, this should have delegitimized his claim for Senate.
He should have been completely embarrassed and run out of town kind of thing. In the past, this kind of nonsense would have been completely unacceptable. Nowadays, it's race. This is called race baiting.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is, and it's totally inappropriate and wrong. And the fact that he did it to himself, he himself put that news himself. It's and let's put it this way: your big claim is I'm a victim. Vote for me. It's you're a victim, and you want us to like no, like we want leaders, not victims, to be in charge. I'm like, oh gosh. Anyways, let's move on. So this next story is from CNN. Star Wars calls out racism after attacks on Moses Ingram. Yeah, I know what you were thinking. I was like, Moses? That's like a guy, and I'm like, no, apparently this is a girl. This is a girl name.
Before we even talk about this,
Go for it.
Have you seen Obi-Wan yet?
I've seen like the first episode. I haven't finished the second episode yet.
All right. Yeah, I'm not going to give away any spoilers. I do not like what they've done with Obi-Wan.
Oh, okay. Well, I've seen
the story.
Yeah,
the story is so far interesting, but they've basically really. It's like this would never have happened to Obi-Wan.
Have they neutered him?
Oh, they've neutered him. They made him into like the biggest coward.
He's a soy boy.
Yeah, he's just like, well, like even in episode 1. In episode 1, he abandons that Jedi to his death.
He does.
And I'm like, Obi-Wan would never do that.
Not to mention that the like when Ben or like the Uncle Owen, when he's threatened, I'm like, why are you on this planet? The whole reason you came to this planet is to protect Luke
and Owen and Maru.
And he's right there, like about to get attacked, and like they're threatening to kill him, which I thought was totally like garbage. Like it's like, oh, I'm gonna pick some random person who just happens to be the most important one.
Yeah,
and like that's solid storytelling. But like, come on, like you're there to defend like Luke, and if they kill like his father, like like the father at the time, guess what? Luke's gonna have to be relocated, and she's threatening to attack the family. You're useless, like
utterly useless.
Utter useless. Okay, so speaking of someone who's utterly useless, this from the CNN. The Star Wars franchise is sticking up for actor Moses Ingram after she revealed she had received hundreds of racist messages and comments on social media. The franchise tweeted that it was proud to welcome Ingram, who just made her debut as Reva in the Disney Plus series Obi-Wan Kenobi. If anyone, again, this is her speaking, I think.
No, this is the Star Wars account.
If anyone intends to make her feel in any way unwelcome, we have only one thing to say. We resist. The Star Wars account tweeted, there are more than 20 million sentient species in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't choose to be a racist. Oh, good. So Star Wars is calling their fan base racist. Good to know.
Are you trying to use my Legion of Doom voice?
I'm just going for some kind of like, ominous, like, dark voice and all that. So no. It just kind of like, delved into that at some point.
Yeah, let's have everybody shame Danny in the comments.
Well, I thought that was really ominous. I was going for ominous. It's like Star Wars.
A little bit.
Whatever. Series lead Ewan McGregor also voices Stott while praising Ingram as a brilliant actor who literally is doing a streaming. This is her first role, and it's like a streaming role. Like, great. She's a brilliant actor, for sure. In a video posted to the Star Wars Twitter account late Tuesday evening, it just sickened me to my stomach to hear that this has been happening, McGregor said in the video. We stand with Moses. We love Moses. Yeah, so like, and this is the worst one. He's like, if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind. Like, okay, so here's the thing about this article. So like the whole controversy. This whole controversy is honestly a non-controversy. Yeah. It is.
Oh, it's totally a non-controversy.
Any Hollywood actor, any major anyone will tell you that one of the things that you will get, no matter how good or how bad you are, is you will get hate mail. That is a given for anyone. No one's saying that hate mail is good. I got hate mail yesterday. Yes. Steven did, like, because he's such a prominent, personality on the conservative right. So I'm like, hey, of course he's gonna get hate mail. But the thing is, like, you expect it because there are going to be a lot of people who are angry and who want to take it out on, like, people they don't like, and so it's expected. Yep, like, obviously, in an ideal world, that wouldn't be the case. But unfortunately, that's not the real world. Yeah. Now, people who know this world, they understand it. But the problem is the left weaponizes this, and they because being a victim is social capital, and so they use it to try to like say like, look at me, I'm such a victim. They're being mean to me, and so like like, now I deserve all this, like, special praise. And then, sure enough, people come out in droves and be like, "Oh, you're so brave, you're so beautiful, you're so..." Yeah, they do that thing. So this is just manufactured outrage, and the worst part is that, like, these aren't like, like I would dare to venture, these are not real Star Wars fans.
Yep.
But Disney wants to throw Star Wars fan base under the bus for being racist.
Well,
and
like,
all this
every time one of these things happens, like, if it's to someone like this, it's always, and I do mean always, it's always an account that has like 4 followers.
Of course.
Like, it reminds me of a while ago, there was a video by Steven Crowder, and it went after, I think it was like Superwoman. And it's like, okay, let's check out this profile that made this comment. And it's like, you literally have 3 subscribers. And this is the person you're going after because this is who you want to go after on the right, because you can't go after anyone mainstream because nobody mainstream is going to make these comments. Whereas on the left, like, if it comes to attacking conservatives for their beliefs, you don't even need to go to these like small groups or small users, because mainstream people, like we talked about on Tuesday, like Ethan Klein, like Cenk Uygur, all these individuals will openly post nonsensical threats and incitement to violence and hate everywhere that they can, because they think that they're going to get away with it.
Absolutely.
Another person that thinks that they're going to get away with stupid stuff is Joe Biden.
Stunts.
K-pop
Joe
super
Biden.
BTS Meets Biden speaks at White House. South Korean boy band BTS, a fundraising juggernaut for U.S. social justice causes, met with Joseph Biden at the White House on Tuesday to discuss hate crimes targeting Asians. The K-pop stars made brief statements to reporters prior to the meeting, calling for a halt to crimes targeting Asian Americans. "We were devastated by the recent surge of hate crimes, including Asian American hate crimes," band member Jamin said through a translator. "To put a stop to this and support the cause, we'd like to take this opportunity to voice ourselves once again." The meeting came as Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month in May drew to a close following a sharp upswing in hate crimes against the community in the past year. I wonder who's committing the majority of those hate crimes.
Black people! Sorry, I got back off. Just came up.
Somehow your bad cough is truthful. But it is. There was
Very
just
truthful.
one, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago in Dallas?
Yeah,
like-
and they happen regularly in New York. Actually, it happened the other day in New York. Somebody else got attacked by, you guessed it, black person.
Yeah. And then this is so stupid. Reuters, you should be ashamed. Attacks against the people of Asian descent have escalated as some politicians and pundits have encouraged Americans to blame China for COVID-19. That is not true. Yes, pundits and conservative Americans do blame China because China is at fault for COVID-19, but in no way do they encourage violence against Asian people.
Not to mention that you have zero proof of any of this. Like the idea that like there's not a single black person who's attacked these people who's actually said, like, been on record saying, like, oh yeah, it's because they started the pandemic and I'm mad about that. Like, nobody. This is a completely manufactured talking point. Completely. They're totally made up. I hate to say it, Stephen. They lied. They're liars, all of them.
Yeah. All right.
But I can do the next story. So the next story, the final story, is from True North, whom I love. Like, this media company is awesome. So, defense panel deems Canadian military a failure of systemic and cultural racism. So even the Canadian military has also gone woke. A new report by the Defense Ministry is called Systemic Racism and White Supremacy, the biggest problems plaguing Canada's military. I call garbage. I call BS on this entire thing. The biggest problems? Give me a break. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The final report of Minister of National Defense Advisory Panel on Systemic Racism and Discrimination, by the way, these are probably easily appointed by ideologues and by the Trudeau government, so give me a break. They're obviously going to give you that. They include a 15-page glossary defining terms such as ableism, cisgender, and invisible The heck's an invisible disability? Oh my gosh. It's like, I can't even. That's an invisible disability, I guess.
Well,
It's
no,
out there.
I do know
Is
it.
it?
Like, I've worked with people that have like fetal alcohol syndrome and like congenital defects.
I talk about like things like ADHD and things that you can't see.
Yeah, like mental issues that don't immediately present themselves because they're not outwardly visible.
See, I would be okay with that idea, except the people like pushing this entire garbage are using the woke terms. So I'm like, I'm not very confident that what they mean by invisible disabilities would be the commonsensical way. I'm thinking they're probably using these like, totally made up terms.
Yeah.
Its authors claim Canada is an inherently racist country. That's a lie. And recommends that monotheistic religions like Christianity have no place in the military. Oh, it's not nice. Wow. The military is basically like being completely derogatory and discriminatory against Christians. That's okay because Christians are the oppressors. The failure of the defense team to be... Yeah. The failure of the defense team to be representative of Canadian demographics is rooted, they're using the language right there, in the system that was created by European settlers. This is like CRT like 101 right here. Everything is taken out of the CRT playbook. 4 panel members behind the 108-page report go on to cite an unverified claim by so-called hate researcher Dr. Barbara Perry, which argues that there are 300 active far-right extremist groups operating in Canada without any... I've heard this. The idea that there's like a massive collection of right-wing hate extremist groups is such an egregious lie. And it's totally not even the reality. The left has far more extremist groups operating and far more dangerous extremist groups fully operational all over Canada. And they never get acknowledged. It's just like these made up, totally imaginary right-wing groups that it's so stupid. So basically this article goes on, but basically what they're saying, the Canadian military is infected by systemic racism and white supremacism. Like, this is like everything
really,
is wrong with
really stupid. And unfortunately, that because basically this is how the federal governments and this is how a lot of provincial governments are operating in Canada. In Canada, things are only moving further to the left.
Yeah.
Thankfully, in the United States, there has been a large and visceral reaction to all of this. Like, there was a report that was just released that basically Republicans and conservatives are... They're becoming a much larger segment of society.
Yeah.
And those that are left in the left are much more violent, and they're even willing to accept political assassinations to get what they want and to eliminate politicians and popular individuals whom they deem as a threat.
Yeah, we talked about Ezra Klein on Tuesday. He wanted he joking, not joking, about like bombing the NRA convention.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even just him. Like, I think according to this like SP Southern Poverty Law Center poll, I believe that they said it was about 30% of millennial Democrat men who were like, yeah, it's totally fine to like promote political assassinations.
Yeah.
Against not just like foreign entities, but entities and political individuals within the United States.
Yeah.
It's like,
this is what...
Ooh.
See, this is why I really appreciate when people make the case that leftists are like pouty children, okay? Because like if you've ever seen, like you, Stephen, you clearly have children. You know what happens when a child has a temper tantrum. What do?
They stomp their feet and scream.
They stomp their feet, they scream, they get mad. They usually want to hit. It's because they want something, they don't know how to get it, they don't know how to vocalize what they're feeling, and so the only resort they have is just violence and anger and screaming. This is the left in a nutshell.
Yep.
They cannot make a legitimate argument for what they believe or they want, and so because they're incapable and they're impotent, they resort to anger and yelling and screaming and violence, which is why they do that. So, yeah.
Yep.
Welcome to Canada, where our military is so guy.
Welcome to KKK Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Yep. Oh, Canada, where everything is just trash. But that's not all that's trash, unfortunately.
Tell us more, Stephen.
Tell us more. Well, unfortunately, I didn't really want to, but I guess I have to. So, you wanted this to be a twap.
Oh, they're doing it. Okay.
It's a trap! No.
It's a trap.
My goodness, I love that. Like, that's one of the best lines in Star Wars. It's just so weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so obvious, and it's like, okay, obviously nobody in command would have to say this. It'd just be, of course, this was like the dumbed down version of like what an actual military commander would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because an actual military commander in that situation would be like, "Oh,
Oh, crap.
yeah."
I just walked into a quagmire.
But this is also bad. So researchers say AstraZeneca vaccine linked to Guillain-Barré syndrome. So researchers at the University College of London have confirmed a rise in cases of GBS, or Guillain-Barré syndrome, a potentially fatal neurological disorder following inoculation with AstraZeneca. Researchers said they have found a rise in cases of the syndrome within 2 to 4 weeks after receiving AstraZeneca, but have not found a similar surge following inoculation with Pfizer and Moderna. They add that while this is still speculation, the link may result from how the AstraZeneca vaccine delivers COVID spike proteins to the body, i.e. through a weakened chimp adenovirus, referred to as a Trojan horse delivery system. The moment we don't know why a vaccine may cause these very small rises in GBS, says Professor Michael Lunn.
Mm-hmm.
So they say it may be a couple different things, but they're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is a rare neurological disorder that causes the body's immune system to attack nerves. It initially leads to weakness and tingling in the extremities, but it quickly progresses throughout the body, often resulting in paralysis and the inability to walk, speak, or eat. While most recover, the disorder has a fatality rate of 4 to 7%. There is no cure for it, and according to the Telegraph, it saw a rise in cases of about 90 to 140 cases in the UK.
That's crazy.
So, according to their numbers, it's only 5.8 per million doses. That is, of course, low, but we can always assume that that's likely much lower than the actual totals.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why this is this fits with the idea that this is it's a trap is because this is something you and I have been predicting like for forever. We've been like throughout the COVID pandemic and everything that they were throwing at us. By the way, while I'm talking about this, I shared a story with you on Messenger with the story from CTV about that guy. You'll see it. It's on Messenger. Okay, so what is the link here? So all the way through at the very beginning, when they were pushing vaccines all in 2021, the biggest lie they were telling you is that safe and effective, which we all know is a propaganda and a manipulation tactic used by it's psychological warfare. Repeated phrase over and over and over again in order that people will just remember it and it becomes ingrained in their psyche. And they were told there's no side effects. There's no, it's not even close. There's these are super rare. Here's the problem: is when you make these kind of situations, and not only that, you are also not giving people a choice, because let's face it, anyone who says you had a choice of whether or not to get a vaccine is lying to you, because what that was a false choice. It's also called Hobbes. I think it's called a Hobbes after the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, which is basically the idea that if it's not an actual choice. A choice is a choice between two equal things. Okay, you could either move to the States or you can stay in Canada. You could have ice cream, or you could have you could have chocolate ice cream, or you can have vanilla ice cream. That's a choice. But this is not a choice. This is say, hi, I have a gun to your head. You can choose to give me your wallet, or I can shoot you. It's not a real choice. Like, yeah, you get the illusion of choice, but really, there's only one really acceptable choice. And this is what they did. Now, why is this like such a big deal? It's because what they've done, they took away people's right or even ability to choose. And there's going to be like already we know that there's already like thousands, if not millions, of people who have been by these things. And then at the end, they're going to say, "Whoops, our bad. Oh, so sorry." And this is a trap where basically it's the shoot first, ask questions later kind of approach.
Yep.
And this is the Trojan horse that they're setting up. It's the we're going to do this, and who cares about the potential outcomes? Who cares about how much harm does it get caused? Who cares about? But the thing is, once you've done it, it's irreversible. And this is true for not just this, like, but this. Here's an example in CTV News Vancouver. To the story, you can tell the story here.
All right. So it's vindicating BC man to receive compensation for COVID-19 vaccine injury. So Ross Whiteman is walking again, but the 40-year-old BC resident now needs special braces for his legs. I have basically no muscle or nerve movement and activity below my knees. At this point, his hands also have nerve damage. Both hands, they curled in. He explained in an interview with CTV News. They're pretty much doing everything a challenge. Added the 40-year-old former pilot and realtor from the Lake Country. I'm constantly dropping things on the floor, phones, cutlery, you name it, I drop it. More than a year after becoming partially paralyzed following his COVID-19 vax, Whiteman has become one of the first in the country to be approved for compensations for the Federal Vaccine Injury Support Program. It's vindicating. It's kind of the first thought that came to my mind, he said. He developed a rare neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome after receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine in April of 2021. My world got flipped upside down, he said. Most recent available data from the BC indicates 10 people have been hospitalized with GBS after a COVID-19 vaccine at the start of the vaccine program. All have been released from hospital. Yeah, I doubt that.
So again, one of the things that Stephen and I covered, like all throughout the COVID pandemic, is that the Canadian government was lying to you through their teeth about the scale. What was really happening is that they were intentionally not counting and misrepresenting the true scale of vaccine injuries and vaccine deaths. And I personally have heard like dozens upon dozens of testimonies of people who have died directly after taking the vaccines, or who have had serious, very serious, life-altering, outcomes from them. So here, this is why we were saying this was so horrible. It's because the trap is trust us, and then there's no consequence later. And there's not going to be the sad thing is there are probably going to be thousands, like tens of thousands, who knows how many of people that are going to be severely injured, damaged by these COVID injections, and the government's going to be like, "Oh, our bad," and there's nothing. It's exactly like the transgender community right now with children. They have all these like forces that are forcing children into this one-way path of like transition and like all sorts of like irreversible things that are going to cause them lifelong medical complications, sterilization. They're going to cause them all sorts of horrible like things that are irreversible. And in the end, it's going to be a whoops, our bad. So this is I like to call this the whoops, our bad fallacy, where they're happy to do whatever harm or damage that they want, and there's no consequence. And so like the way I always look at it, it's way better to avoid I have a philosophy when I drive my car. I would much rather avoid an accident right off the bat, and then get into an accident and deal with it later. It's way better to avoid the irreversible. And the problem is, the trap is, they tell you, trust us, and then you believe that they have your best intentions at heart, but then in the end, they're going to be like, whoops, they're going to, clean their hands and be like, not our problem. It's your problem now. This is the whoops are bad fallacy, and it's the one that's going to. We're gonna hear so many stories about this later on, but yeah,
we will.
that's a trap.
It's really unfortunate, and it was a trap in the first place, and it's still a trap, and I still get notifications and kind of little ad videos on YouTube that are like,
oh, you should get your vaccine,
you
Steven.
should get your boosters. It's time.
Hey,
There's
shit.
little alarm
It's
bells
time.
going off in your head that you should get your boosters. You should get your vaccine. It's like, no,
Oh.
I won't. I will not listen to your nonsense. Go away. But
Yeah, I've had people that ask me like, hey, why didn't you get the vaccine? And I'm like,
so
well,
many.
have you heard about the possibilities that it could happen? It's like, oh, but those are rare. I'm like, but they're possible, and they're very possible. And like, if I get any of those like really brutal like side effects, they're for life.
Yeah,
I'm not recovering. I'm not willing to take that kind of a risk for something that poses almost no risk to me. I'm like, yeah, don't give me that, Brian. So it's better to just avoid. But this is why I don't want to take that chance, because the chances of getting a very severe life-altering illness is way too high a price to pay.
Yep.
So don't pay it.
Don't pay it. Just do it.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Take it to the next section, Steven.
Last and final section, the new word order on phobia. All right. So as you can see, there is a crazy picture, which Danny found for us, and we're all
That's
very
right.
terrified by it. Especially this like, little bit of eye right here. It's really disgusting. Because it seems like the eye is actually like coming apart.
the reason is because there's a completely and totally made up term that is now part of our like lives now, and that term is, what is it, Steven?
Phobia.
So
I'm just going to read the kind of this description from Harvard Health Publishing. So if you say we're making this up, screw you. So, phobia, what is it? A phobia is a persistent, excessive, unrealistic fear of an object, person, animal, activity, or situation. It is a type of anxiety disorder. A person with a phobia either tries to avoid the thing that triggers the fear or endures it with great anxiety and distress. Some phobias are very specific and limited. For example, a person may fear only spiders, which is arachnophobia, or cats, which is ailurophobia. In this case, a person lives relatively free of anxiety by avoiding the thing he or she fears. Some phobias cause trouble in a wider variety of places and situations. For example, symptoms of acrophobia, fear of heights, can be triggered by looking out the window of an office building or by driving over a high bridge. The fear of confined spaces, which is claustrophobia, can be triggered by riding in an elevator or using a small restroom. People with these phobias may need to alter their lives drastically. In extreme cases, the phobia may dictate the person's employment, job location, driving route, recreation, and social activities, or home environment. So these are some common phobias from A to Z. So they're the most common form of mental illness in the United States. I did not actually know that. Approximately 12.5% of adults in the United States will deal with a specific phobia in their lifetime. And of course, women are more likely to experience phobias than men because they're weak. No.
Okay, Leah Thomas.
So 4 major specific phobia categories: environment, animals, mutilation, situations. Glossophobia. Oh, glossophobia. This said glossophobia, and I was like, all right.
So take us to some of these like crazy phobias here.
I think the highlighted one's the most popular. So acrophobia, which is the fear of heights. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Bacteriophobia.
There's arithmophobia is the fear of numbers. Like, how would you function? How would you function at all?
Yeah.
You can see a number without being like, oh my gosh.
Acrophobia, fear of ugliness.
That's awesome.
Chronophobia, fear of time.
Okay, look at this. How do you spell this? Haphophobia, fear of touch. You literally like you touch me like, like you would be like the most antisocial person ever.
This is awesome. Hippopotamonstrosis escapediliophobia, fear of long words.
I feel like that one was done on purpose. That one had to have been done
hilarious.
It's like you have a phobia of long words. Like, what's it called? This hippopotamus.
Yeah.
That's just mean.
Ponophobia, the fear of buttons.
Oh, here, leukophobia, the fear of the color white. Apparently, like
Dang.
people with white supremacy have a real problem with that one. Oh my gosh. So like it goes
I
on.
do
Like, there's
have
so many
I have
things.
slight ophidiophobia, fear of snakes.
Oh really?
I'm not good with snakes.
Hmm.
Like
Okay.
I've had
Oh,
my friend in high school, he tried to get me acquainted with his snake,
uh-huh.
and then it like nearly bit me when I was feeding it.
Oh, that's not good. That's not
And
going
I
to
was
help
like,
with that.
No, I'm not coming near.
Okay.
No.
Okay. You want to hear the just the name of this one? Okay. Like, get this: Venus traphobia.
Phobophobia, fear of phobias.
Venus traphobia is the fear of beautiful women.
Dang.
Apparently, you're only dating the ugly ones if you have Venus traphobia.
This is a rational phobia. Wiccaphobia, fear of witches.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have that one.
Now, do they have the one that we're going to be talking about today? No, they don't. Because
they
it's
don't.
not
Why
a
is
real
that?
phobia.
It's not a real phobia. Okay, so let's talk about the idea of phobia. Okay, Stephen, like when you think about phobia, what are the characteristics that like we just talked about, like from the Harvard one? But like, the characteristics are really simple. It's like irrational and very strong fear,
Yeah.
or anxiety about something specifically. Okay, now we're constantly being conservatives. We're constantly like thrown all of these phobia words. Now, give me a rundown. Some of the phobia words that we're constantly throwing at us.
Oh, throw it at conservatives?
Yes, from the conservatives. Give us some
I
examples.
shall use in the great words of Kim. I am not homophobic. No, because they call us homophobes. They call us transphobes. They call us
Islamophobes.
Islamophobia. Yeah, Islamophobes.
And Islamophobia is legitimately a Canadian one. They use that all the time.
Yeah, it's really,
They
really
use
dumb.
xenophobia. Well, xenophobia, believe it or not, is in this list at the very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Xenophobia is basically the fear of strangers or foreigners. Okay, like this is just it's obviously too specifically used, but here's what they're doing. Okay, these are made up words because people who these labels are being thrown at, they're being thrown at, and they're not actually descriptive of what is happening. Okay, let's for example assume that Stephen is talking to me, and I'm a gay man. Okay, and he says like I don't think I'm not a big supporter of like gay marriage, and I'd be like, oh, you're such a homophobe. What am I actually saying? Like, I'm not actually saying that well, I may be saying that, but there's no actual fear. Stephen isn't exhibiting any fear. There's no like instant as a reaction. You are presenting a rational, thoughtful approach. But when I throw the label of homophobia, the only goal is to shut you up.
Yep.
It's designed to stop conversation and to make it a stigma to question this view. We have an actual word for that. The word is blasphemy. Can you look up the definition of blasphemy, Stephen?
Oh, you mean to do
Yes,
this
please.
in real
Do
time?
real time definition of blasphemy. Okay, go for it. Definition.
An act or offense of speaking sacrilegiously about God or sacred things, profane talk. He was detained on charges of blasphemy.
Okay, so blasphemy laws have been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
In the Middle Ages, it was like considered blasphemous to speak speak negatively or offensively against church, against God, or against any of these things. Okay, what these phobia words of the modern day, which is like all these phobia words that the left uses, they're modern day blasphemy laws. Okay, they're just blasphemy terms. The goal is because they consider what their beliefs and their views. So if you're a transgender person or a transgender activist or advocate, you consider transgenderism to be so sacred that you cannot and you must not and you should not ever say even anything that is even remotely disapproving or not supportive of. It's like this, you are not allowed to say a negative thing about this thing, this belief system. And so when it comes to blasphemy is actually saying this thing is sacred, which means it is off limits. It is taboo. You cannot touch it. It is so sacred that any word against it, even if it's not an offensive or mean-spirited or a bad thing, anything that is even remotely attacking the sacred object is considered to be off limits, taboo, and hence blasphemous. And blasphemy is literally an accusation that even happened in the Bible. Remember what the Pharisees and all these religious leaders, they said of Jesus?
Yep.
They said, like, he's speaking blasphemy. He is speaking against something sacred that you cannot touch. This is what. So when you think, what are they saying? Oh, like they call me homophobe, or they say I'm guilty of homophobia. That's not a thing. There's no such thing as a phobia. Nobody is afraid. Nobody is anxious or hateful.
There is phobias exist,
Yes,
but there is no such thing as a phobia about homosexual or transgender individuals. This is. I've often said it. It's like, oh, you have a phobia. You're homophobic. You're afraid of them. I'm like, I'm not afraid of them, but guess what? I'm afraid for them. Because anyone with a Christian worldview, we thoroughly believe, and I'm sure that most people know this, that those that are refusing to, of course, accept Christ, and that if those are refusing to obey the will of God, will go to hell. That is a basic biblical tenet. And, of course, those that are living in open rebellion to God are going to go to hell too. Because that's just a basic principle. And so, why would it not follow that we would be afraid for them because we know what's going to happen to them? We're afraid for them because we know what these lifestyle choices will lead to in their lives.
Yeah,
I have immense, like, even that person which I was basically being shouted at yesterday, and they were they're saying these most ridiculous things you've ever heard of.
But they're the good guys, Stephen. Don't you know?
Yeah, they would be the good guys. The left would look at the conversation that they had where they were attacking all Christians as rapists and murderers, and that, oh, your podcast is killed gay people because it's incited people to violence. And I'm like, none of what you're saying is true. And I'm trying to be reasonable with you. But you are choosing to attack on every front because you cannot accept that your lifestyle choices are innately harmful. Not just to yourself, but to those around you. And of course, if you adopt or raise any children, it's going to be innately harmful too. And they can't accept that. And so they have to lash out with these like blasphemy type laws and these blasphemy type accusations so that you are the evil one simply by the virtue of saying, no, I will not conform to your ideology and I will not conform to your narrative. I'm going to rise up and say, no, pride is not this massive virtue. Pride is, unfortunately, pride is the king of all vices. And what we should be striving for, instead of pride, we should be striving for, and you know where I'm going with this, we should be striving for humility, because humility is the queen of all virtue. And, of course, humility, as it says in Proverbs, is the beginning of wisdom. So we're not fearful of you because we know what's coming, and we feel immense compassion and pity for you. So stop attacking us. Stop treating us like we are your enemy. We're not your enemy. We just disagree with you. I've said it before. The left views those that disagree with them as evil. The right views those that disagree with them as someone incorrect and someone to be convinced.
Yeah, and that's what Dennis Prager always says. It basically says that that's the way that it works. So you're exactly right. The idea is that um, these people are in a basically a world where they're given permission to act with all sorts of impunity because they're given consequence free permission to do anything, to do and say anything they want. It's like if you said to your children, by the way, I have one boy and you have three girls. The boy is allowed to do and say anything to his sisters, anything he wants. But the girls, if the girls even say one mean thing or hit like like the brother, like each one of them will be punished immediately and without any delay or anything like that. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to have a boy that is going to run amok, is going to do everything he wants. He's going to feel like, I can do whatever I want. And the girls are going to be afraid, and they're going. You basically created chaos in your own family. This is what's happening in our society on a bigger scale. They're giving the transgender community full autonomy to do and say whatever they want. Away with it. And in order to protect them, because they can't make an argument for their side, like they can't even answer the question, "What is a woman?" Then they use words as weapons, and one of those words is homophobic, transphobic. It's basically blasphemy. You can't say something negative about what I believe or what I of what I am because it's sacred. And so you're not allowed to speak against this thing. And that is what they're doing. This is how they're weaponizing language. This is how they're completely using language as basically a sword to attack people that you can't respond.
Yeah.
It's meant to shut you up.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's a sword. I'd say it'd be a net.
Like a grenade, actually.
A grenade would explode and it would cause significant damage, whereas a net would, instead of attacking you directly, it entraps you.
Yeah.
So that you're limited in your actions because everything is now taken under the you don't have a point because you're homophobic. You don't have a point because you're transphobic. It's like, but my point is totally valid. It's like, but you're a homophobe. And so therefore, nothing you say can be taken seriously. And automatically by using that, it's like using racist.
Yeah.
It's automatically by using that language that they win. In the court of public opinion. You know that, of course, they've lost the debate because they're using a fallacy, but in the court of public opinion, simply by using homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, any of these terms, they are controlling and manipulating the way that our society talks about these things. And we have a couple of these stories, for example.
So this, by the way, this is an article from 19, or was it at the very bottom? 1984. The reason I brought it up is it's so old, but I'm trying to show you that they were trying to basically use this language even early, because the idea is like they wanted to explain where do these feelings come from psychologically. So yeah, go ahead and read some of this, Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this person,
Gregory Herrick.
Well, Gregory Herrick was basing some things on William James. Assumed that being repulsed by the idea of intimate contact with a member of the same sex is instinctive and exists more strongly in men than in women. Interestingly, in cultures where some form of unnatural vices as homosexuality are found, James supposed that the instinctual aversion has been overcome by habit. In other words, he assumed that tolerance is learned and revulsion is inborn. Okay? It's particularly surprising in view of his hypothesis that there is a germinal possibility for same-sex attraction exists in most men. I love how they psychoanalysts found the same, offered a more psychological view. Sigmund Freud, and it's like Sigmund Freud is a quack.
Yeah, he is. He's already been shown to be. A lot of his theories have been debunked.
Yeah, and so this is a lot of where they're saying the phobia comes from, because they're like, those with negative attitudes towards homosexual individuals
Mm-hmm.
In general, some consistent patterns have been observed across different samples. When compared to those with more favorable attitudes towards lesbians and gay men, these studies have found that persons with negative attitudes are less likely to have personal contact, less likely to report having engaged in homosexual behaviors, more likely to perceive their peers as manifesting negative attitudes, more likely to have resided in areas like it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And even nowadays, like to cite something more frequent, I think it was Ben Shapiro posted this today. He said that the only holdouts in North American society, or at least
regular church
attending individuals.
Yeah,
it's like that's how far our society and that's how far our culture has fallen, considering that 50, like even 30 years ago, homosexuality was still seen as an exceptionally abnormal practice. And now, once they accepted homosexuality, as many people, including myself, and I'm sure Danny have said, that was just the first step. And now, within, what was it? It was legalized, like, gay marriage in the United States was legalized in 2014. 2015, okay. 6-7 years later now. And we're already saying, maybe we should take another look at minor attracted persons. This
coming.
is messed up. And it's only going to get worse until our society has a massive shift.
Yeah. I think that the what this shows is because they were arguing this even way back then.
Yeah.
Way back in the late 80s, early 90s. Because remember, there was an agenda, a book called After the Ball, where they basically laid out a plan of how they were going to take over the culture, and it was all about changing attitudes. Now, in this article, I skimmed through a lot of it. Basically, like the guy's arguing that these attitudes that they did, like the idea that people did like homosexuality or whatever is totally a psychological thing. It can be overcome, and they basically talk about it like it's a disease. And this is where this is the world from which they came up with the idea of homophobia. I think a really good analogy to help you understand how they frame it is they almost because they want to make it sound like it's not. There's no thought. Because when you think about a phobia is irrational. You can't explain sometimes why you're afraid of spiders, why you're afraid of heights. You just are, and it's innate. You can't think about it. You can't explain it. And a lot of people have been convinced or told that people who oppose homosexuality or transgenderism do it because of complete. They can't explain it. It's not. It's some kind of a weird psychological thing. But it's worse than that. They feel that you speaking about it is dangerous. Hence why they always talk about violence and inciting violence, causing deaths and all that. And so it's a better way of looking at it is it's almost like they're accusing people of having rabies. Think about it, because when somebody has rabies, it's like you can't help it. You're already sick and you're delirious, and you can be infectious. And so they have to this person's evil. Though you can't reason with them, and they're dangerous. They could contain. They could infect others with their dangerous ideas, dangerous thoughts. And so the stigma is the most powerful weapon that they have. The stigma of the outsider. This is the scarlet letter. This is the witches, the witch hunt, or the McCarthyism of the, after the 50s. The idea that they're the bad guy, get them, And so people are forced to be scared. And so most people nowadays that go along with this stuff, they didn't be turned towards it because they thought about it and they really kind of analyzed it. They turned it because there's rewards in being an ally and there's punishments in being an enemy. This is like a lot of people say, the new religion. And so you have to go along, otherwise you're going to be punished, or you're going to be, penalized. And this was really well laid out in the Guardian story. So the Guardian story here says, Recorded homophobic hate crimes soared in pandemic, figures show. So this is something that is part of their talking point. In order for the gay community to have their virtue of being victims, remember, this whole foundation is based upon the idea they have to be oppressed. They have to be victims. So they can never solve the problem of oppression. They can never solve the problem of being victims because then they lose their power. And so they have to perpetually be oppressed always, even though they are the least oppressed group in all of North America. Entire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So go into this article here.
Yep. So police chiefs have urged victims of homophobic and transphobic abuse to come forward after figures showed the number of hate crimes soared to their highest monthly level since the beginning of the pandemic. After lockdown restrictions were eased, reports of sexual orientation hate crimes recorded by UK police forces rose to an average of 1456 a month in January to April this year to 2,211 on average from May to August. From January to August this year, at least 14,670 homophobic hate crime offenses were recorded, compared with 11,841 in the same period of 2020 and 10,817 in 2019. During the same period, police recorded over 2,000 transphobic offenses, as well as 1,600 offenses in 2020 and 1,602 in 2019. Of course, it shows this bar graph. So, campaigners said the real hate crime figures are likely to be higher due to underreporting, and that they are a stark reminder that LGBTQ+ are still under risk of attacks because of who we are.
You see, it's always we're the crazy victims and all that. By the way, anytime like I was actually like a while ago, I was in a very interesting conversation with a whole bunch of people from church, and there was this one girl who was sharing a story where somebody in her job got promoted above her, and she was convinced that their boss was racist against her, and that the reason she didn't get promoted is it has to be because she was black and the person was super racist, and they were convinced. And then later on, they found out that no, there were some extremely solid reasons why this other person was promoted and why she wasn't, and to the point where she found out, she was like, oh yeah, they were definitely better for the job and all that. But then they realized that because of the way that they
preconceived
viewed
notions,
the world,
they built up
preconceived notions.
Yeah, they built up thoughts.
Yeah, they believed every slight and every action against them is because of racism. Michelle Obama exemplified this when she was
her
at
ice cream story.
The ice cream story. She
so
was at a
stupid.
store. What was it? What was the story, Stephen?
Oh, wasn't it
Remember?
like that?
Like she was. Yeah.
Somebody came into the store and
cut in front of her.
And cut in front of her, and they didn't notice her.
Yeah.
And she's like, this
Instantly,
is just
racism
and white privilege that they didn't even notice a black woman and her kids. And it's like,
right.
Or they just didn't see you because you're not the most important person in the world, lady.
Right. Well, I mean, she must think she is because she's she's freaking Michelle Obama.
Yeah, Michelle Obama.
Right. But this is the problem with these stats is if you've ever met like a legitimately like ideological like leftists, either a transgender, gay, or even like a black, leftist and all that, everything is a slight. Like seriously, they're like that. They're like that pigeon on Animaniacs. It's like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Oh, I just mean you're a nice guy. You're saying I'm some kind of like little doormat. You said he just gets offended with everything.
Everything is triggering.
Right, and this is so when you hear these stats, my first thought is, oh my gosh, like how many of these are absolutely totally over the top, like nonsensical, like because they make it sound like people are literally chasing the gays down the street and beating them to a pulp. Yep. And I'm like, I guarantee you the vast, like 90% of those hate crime things are probably just like, some slight that they didn't like. I was slighted. Yeah.
It's like,
that's what I'm thinking.
They said that homosexuality was a sin. Hate crime.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, that's actually what it's like in the United Kingdom. that you can be charged, you can be sued, and you can possibly put into prison under hate crime legislation for hate speech. And of course, we know here in Canada that if you speak out from the pulpit against homosexuality, against the LGBTQ, then you could have a lot of things taken away from you. You could be charged with $10,000 in fines and up to like 2 years in prison.
3 years, up to 3 years in prison.
Like, my goodness. This is what it takes for these new blasphemy laws, speaking out simply for saying that you disagree. Not like, I can understand people being upset if they get confronted by somebody maybe from the Westboro Baptists, or it's like, God hates fags. No, that's not normal Christian behavior. But if you say it's a hate crime, if somebody says, God loves you, but God doesn't love you when you are openly committing sin. He doesn't enjoy, he is not pleased when you are openly committing sin against him. And they're like, this is hateful because God loves us the way that I am. And it's like, where in Scripture does it say that God approves of everything that we do? Scripture says that we shouldn't conform to the ways of the world. And guess what? You were living in the ways of the world. You were the embodiment of the ways of the world.
The first call of every single gospel, the first thing that Jesus does when he starts his ministry is he says, repent.
Yes.
And that means to everybody. Like, that means to, if you're a greedy person who likes to steal and exploit others, you need to stop. Repent. If you're you're a womanizer and you love to sleep around with every single woman that you've ever met, repent, because you're sinning and God will not accept you.
Danny?
Danny,
you need to be invoking some
homophobic?
No, you need to be invoking the get out, you demons! For those who don't know, that was a reference to Tuesday's show. And what was that guy's name?
I don't remember.
I forget.
I know who you're talking about.
But pastor from Nashville, and he's like, "You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation." And guess what?
It was intense.
You cannot be a Christian and claim to be LGBTQ in this nation.
It's really true. Like, this is the problem. They rob you of your ability to speak, and this is why it all works so well. This is why people are scared, because these people are abusive. It's like, if you're in an abusive relationship, the person dominates you by gaslighting you, by saying you're the bad guy, by saying you're the mean and horrible and cruel and like, you're basically the LGBT community is basically Amber Heard. It's always your fault. You're the bad guy. You're the one that's evil. And Amber Heard can do whatever she wants. She can throw a bottle at you, and you can cut your finger and all that, but it's your fault. How dare you, oppose me in any way, kind of thing. So this is why the whole idea that these phobias are not real phobias. They're made up words designed to basically like shame you. How dare you say anything against what I believe? Yeah. What I believe is sacred. This is why every one of these things, from like CRT to gay and lesbian like relationships to transgenderism, they're a religion, because you're not allowed to say a thing about them. And believe it or not, Islam has blasphemy laws, and they're pretty heavy-handed.
They're very heavy-handed.
They actually include death for anybody who speaks against Prophet Muhammad, which the Charlie Hebdo cartoonist found out very quickly.
Yep.
You cannot blaspheme. Yeah, you cannot blaspheme the precious prophet. And guess what? The LGBT, ideologues are they're not asking. They're not asking for the same, because they can't yet lynch people who are who speak against them. But if they had the ability to go and lynch people, they would. And right now they just don't have that power. But don't take that away from them. I know there's many people out there who would be more than happy to commit full-on acts of violence and terrorism if they had the power.
Yep.
They're working towards it. So when you think, these new phobias, they're just repackaged blasphemy laws, and that is why that is the new word order. This is why the left uses language as a weapon, and they completely repackage words in order to use them against you. So hopefully you learned something.
Yep.
Hey,
You
see,
lot. You lot.
I'm teaching Stephen.
Oh, Pasha, no, you didn't. Anyways, that's what we're going to end for tonight. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. For those, well, there wasn't actually too much interaction on the stream. Shame on you all. But next time, hopefully we have better interactions. And during the course of this week, we will be releasing both a short and longer form of an advert that we will be promoting on various platforms, and start with some marketing campaigns, start getting some real followers. So that should be interesting. But if you're following us on our non-streaming platforms such as BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble, of course, do not forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and comment your way out of everything. And then, of course, if you're following us on our text platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Gitter, and Parler, echo, retweet, like, comments, send us your questions, send us your comments, tell us how much you would love us or hate us. We don't care. We care a little bit, but it won't affect how we operate. We take the hate, we move on. And then, of course, if you're following us on our podcast platforms, then listen, download, and for everything, share the heck out of all our videos, because that's how it gets around. So, with that being said, Danny, sign us out.
Hey, so we're the Shrewd dudes, and we always like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd?
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you on Tuesday for Tuesday News Day. And until then, as always, God bless.
God bless.